most longest business, running continuous business in Wheeling? And what's? Cabinet shop on Water Street. Berry Supply. Been in business since the 1820s. How they stay in business, they keep re-identifying themselves. They originally made ropes. And if you've ever seen ropes made, you had to have what was called a rope block. You had to have a building that would extend for blocks so that all that stuff could be wound up together and in a pretty long place. So we had, let's see, rope manufacturers, cabinet makers, coppersmiths, tin plate workers, hatters. Hatters. Remember, American males wore hats until the 1960s. Everybody wore a hat. Okay? There were wire workers, coopers, water pump manufacturers, soap and tallow makers, bakehouses, 6 livery stables, stone and pottery workers, 7 brickyards. You can't bring the bricks in. They're too heavy. But you have all the clay right here. In fact, a little while later, one of the biggest brick manufacturers in the United States comes out of New Cumberland, West Virginia. And most of those bricks ended up in New Orleans. They just floated them down. So a lot of these buildings that got flooded with Hurricane Katrina probably were made originally came out of New Cumberland. 12 master stone and brick masons. Next time you go to, if you go past Independence Hall, right down the street, that stone came from the creek. The bridge abutments that are just down on this area over here, where the railroad tracks came along, those were all cut locally. The sandstone on the bridge, the suspension bridge, all of that's cut locally. So you have all of those people. You have plasterers, carpenters. You have all of these same kinds of boat builders. So there is activity going on here like you wouldn't believe. And when this guy came to Wheeling, he said, and I quote, "Wheeling is a fascinating place, and one that would warm any man's heart who wants to do business. Wheeling hums with the rhythms of commerce and industry. There are businesses of every sort. But the one that was most visible were the iron mills. Because those iron mills run day and night, and they lighten up the sky. So if you were in a steamboat coming upriver, you could see Wheeling from miles away. If you were coming downriver, you could see it at night from miles away. And if it were daylight, you knew where it was because of the smoke. Rebecca Harding Davis' Life in the Iron Mills, which was written in 1861, says this: "The idiosyncrasy of Wheeling is smoke. It rolls sullenly in and slowly from the great chimneys of the iron foundries and settles down in black slimy pools on the muddy streets. Smoke on the wharves, smoke on the dingy boats, on the yellow river, clinging in a coating of greasy soot to the house front. Okay? Covering the poplar trees, covers the faces of the passers-by. There are long trains of mules dragging masses of pig irons through the narrow street and have a foul vapor hanging from their reeking sides. And here inside our house is a small broken figure of an angel pointing upward from the mantel. And even its wings are covered with smoke, clotted and black. Smoke everywhere. A dirty canary chirps desolately in a cage beside me. Its dream of green fields and sunshine is a very old dream. Well, just to give you an idea of how dirty Wheeling was, the Independence Hall was put up in 1858. They had to replace the roof by 1870 because it had rusted out. Now, see, I grew up in, that doesn't mean anything to me then, because I grew up in weird. And in the 1960s, that's what weird was like. The smoke everywhere. But that smoke was bringing prosperity. And once that prosperity starts, you know, the population increases. You know, we were so keen, we thought maybe we were going to rival Pittsburgh. Well, one of the problems is that Pittsburgh has more room to expand. And Wheeling is going to get hemmed in. Remember, the river is also a boundary for another state. It's difficult to go that way. There are too many hills, and it's hard to find any more areas of mill place because it's too steep. I didn't realize for the first couple of years that I taught Wheeling history, I always used to tell my classes that the first skyscraper in West Virginia was what's now the Severstock building, the old Schmulbach building. It was built in 1907. It was 10 stories high. And that's, you know, that's in itself, I thought that was keen. What was really significant about that was not that it was the first skyscraper, but that Wheeling had to build up in 1907 because there was no other room to build anywhere else. Everything else was taken. And as a consequence, Wheeling will in effect be closed in on itself. It won't have any more room to expand. But in that period of the 19th century, man, they're running amok with activities. Now, as this happens, just to give you an example of the National Road, I don't know if you're familiar or not with what do we use the road for? Mail, okay, passenger lines, freight lines, and livestock. If you lived in rural areas in the summertime, and your kids were out playing, and you looked out up and down the road, and you saw a big cloud of dust, you ran out and got your kids out of the road because there were animals coming. Horses, cattle, sheep, pigs, turkeys. Honest to goodness, one of the funniest things I ever read was an account. They're driving turkeys to market, and they went into a very long covered bridge. What do turkeys do when it's dark? They roost. They went up. I have seen pictures of ducks being driven to market. I'm sorry, I don't think I want to eat a duck that's walked its way from Wheeling to when the National Road first opened, it might take 2 to 3 weeks to get a load of material from Baltimore to Wheeling. When the railroad goes in, it's going to take a matter of hours, maybe 36 hours or something like that. 7 to 20 miles a day is what you could expect to go. You know, because if these wagons weigh that much, how much can you expect a horse to pull? Now, the other thing about life in Wheeling in this time, when you have all of this stuff going on, is I want you to imagine what it must be like if you've got 50 wagons pulled into McCourtney's place down there, and you have 50 times 6, you might have hundreds of horses. I don't know if you've ever measured what a horse can produce.